Hey golfers, Tony from MyGolfSpy here today with something new and potentially exciting from Callaway Golf. It is the first of their 2019 offerings, although I'm fairly certain we can be sure it's not going to be the last. I expect a busy year from Callaway. But what we're talking about today is the new Big Bertha iron. This is a replacement for the Big Bertha OS, which is at least 2, might even be older than that, years old. Point being, no complaining about release cycles. So what we're talking about here is a new iron in the super game improvement / distance category. Callaway is billing it as both. So traditionally, obviously, that is for a guy who wants more distance from an iron. Generally, I'm not sold on that as an ideal concept, but hey, that is just my opinion. But what certainly it can do is help the guy who needs more forgiveness, needs a little help getting the ball in the air, provided he can manage the lofts because they are strong. We'll talk about that too. The other guy this is for, believe it or not, higher swing speed players. I'm talking guys who swing 100+ mile an hour with their driver. What we're finding is that when you fit those guys into the right shaft, because again, we're talking here a 90 gram KBS max, probably not the right shaft for that kind of guy, but you put that guy in the right shaft in an iron, he's going to be able to get the kind of launch he needs. He's going to get good spin, steep angles of descent. He's going to hold greens, and he's going to hit the ball a freaking mile. So again, I'm not saying you should want distance in an iron, but if you are looking for distance in an iron, even if you're a stronger, bigger, faster player, don't exclude these from your list. At least consider it. Now, that being said, it is a bigger iron, and that may be a turnoff for some. Some guys may love it, not good, not bad, just a preference thing. So with that, you're gonna see some generous offset, little wider sole, and a thicker top line, although I will say that Callaway has done an excellent job with the shaping of the top line, kind of hiding it a little bit. The other thing Callaway does here is try and keep the blade length relatively compact, right? Still a super game improvement iron, but it's not going as far out as like Ping would, right? Ping tends to go with a longer blade length. Again, not good, not bad, it's just the performance you're looking for and what suits your eye a little bit as well. Still recommend getting fit. Now, from a performance / technology story, Callaway, right? Innovators, that's what they want to be, that's how they want to position themselves, and so they're going to remind you with probably every release that they do that whatever it is, something in it is the first. In this case, Callaway is the first to use a new construction technique which basically starts with MIM tungsten. MIMmed means metal injection molding, and what that is a method to precisely shape a chunk of metal so that it fits exactly where you want to. So to kind of illustrate this a little bit, so let's just say that this is our chunk of tungsten, this golf ball. Callaway is using a high density tungsten. In fact, it's a density that's high enough that they struggle to weld it with steel. So in order to keep it in place, they have this TPU jacket they use. So basically they take their tungsten and they put it in a piece of TPU. Then they take that TPU and they stuff it in the club head. And that really, the combination allows them to put it precisely where they want it. Now to hold everything in place, they use, it's really a kind of it injects as a liquid, turns into a solid urethane microsphere. So they kind of inject that into the club head. That holds everything in place. The other benefit of the urethane microspheres is that they provide a dampening effect in terms of feel, vibration, things like that. So you get better sound, better feel. And Callaway is very quick to point out too that unlike some other material, it doesn't inhibit the face's ability to flex. So you're able to maintain that flex, maintain that ball speed while still getting improved feel. Now, that's the good and the bad of it, I suppose. The one thing I want to touch on, and I've covered this before, and if you think I shouldn't be talking about it, leave a comment, tell me that's what it's for, but I think we really need to talk about the fact that Callaway is again using black PVD as their finish. Black PVD looks great on shelves. It looks great the first couple of rounds, but you know, get back to me after you've played 10, 12 rounds with it, after it's clanked around in your bag, and tell me what it looks like. Look, it is not a good finish. In fact, I'm going to go so far as to say PVD is a garbage finish, and that is in direct contrast with Callaway, who is billing this as, and I quote, as a very, very premium product. Guys, as soon as you put PVD on a product, you lose the right to call it premium. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. Here's the reality. Something like a DBM, much more durable. Yeah, it costs a little bit more, but look guys, Cobra's using DBM. Ralph freaking Maltby at Golfworks is using DBM on a set of irons that sells for about $360. Guys, this is a $1,200 set of irons and you're using black PVD? Come on, consumer deserves better. Moving on to the hybrid, also new, right? This is a Big Bertha hybrid, also in the super game improvement category. The big thing with a super game improvement hybrid is just going to be bigger, right? Longer heel to toe, little probably compact little squat, and again, longer front to back. To my eyes, it kind of looks like a Callaway Rogue if you stepped on it a little bit, right? Just kind of spread it out a little bit farther in every direction. Again, strictly a preference thing. We know a lot of guys who like a bigger hybrid. I'm not one of them. That's cool. The first, right? Got to have a first with Callaway. This is the first hybrid ever to combine jailbreak technology, right? So that's your speed boosting technology with an adjustable hosel, right? This is new. The Rogue hybrid had jailbreak but did not have the adjustable hosel, and the reason for that is that Callaway's hosel has traditionally been massive. One of the biggest, heaviest in golf. Now you can get away with that in a driver. You can mitigate the CG consequences other ways. With a hybrid, you really need to save that weight. So what Callaway did here to make this work is actually redesign the hosel. And to my eyes, it's somewhere between a third and half the size of the original one. It's going to be significantly lighter. The interesting thing is there's barely any penetration into the club head, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, if there are any consequences for that. What I will say, be careful taking the head off. There's, again, without that depth going in there, it just wants to flop off and fall onto the floor. Now, the other thing that I think is interesting about this hybrid, and I think potentially exciting for golfers, especially golfers in the super game improvement space who have trouble getting the ball in the air, this is available from a 3 hybrid all the way up to an 8 hybrid. So imagine that, right? Replacing your 8 iron with one of these. Again, it's one of these things, I know it's not cool. Everybody wants to have, irons that look like irons in their bag, but if you need help getting the ball in the air, hitting it straight, whatever it is, man, if an 8 hybrid works, go with it. Let's not rule it out. So that's kind of the tech behind the iron and the hybrid. So what I'm going to do is head over to the golf course, hit both of these and see what I see. What I'm really looking for is the launch conditions, right? Can we mitigate the stronger lofts? Can we hit them consistently? What kind of results are we going to get? And then what does that tell us about who these might be for? So we'll be right back. All right, guys, I am back. I was over at McGregor Links Country Club hitting balls in our indoor bay, grabbing some data with the GC Quad to figure out what we're working here. Before I talk about what I found out, let's lay down the ground rules here. We are talking about one guy, right? Just me hitting balls, giving you my opinion based on what I found. These are just my observations, what I thought about the club, and actually kind of what I thought about my own clubs in testing, which was kind of an interesting side thing that came of this. So before we get into that real quick in terms of the subjective stuff, look, sound, feel, what have you. I definitely noticed the offset looking down on it. It is pronounced. It is a big iron, to be expected. I think if you stare at anything long enough, you'll get used to it. So if you get good performance from this, don't overthink the way it looks. The other thing I would say, the feel. We're talking about a super game improvement club here, and so I think in that category the goal isn't necessarily, realistically anyway, to make a great feeling iron. I think realistically the best you can do is an iron that feels pretty good or doesn't feel too bad, and certainly nothing in this that would make me exclude it based on feel alone. Feels pretty good, certainly better than the previous Big Bertha OS. So I think Callaway did an excellent job there, and I would also mention, looking down on it, the top line, again, with the way they've kind of smoothed it and rounded it, it doesn't look too huge to me. So super game improvement category, it's not the biggest shovel out there by any stretch. I actually kind of like it. All right, so that being said, let's talk about the data a little bit. This wasn't true apples to apples, so my gamer Mizuno JPX 919 forged with a Project X LZ 6.5 shaft in it, which is pretty close to the opposite of what this is. Frame of reference, I swing my 6 iron about 82, 83 miles an hour. My driver swing speed nowadays just a hair under 105. So again, I'm that guy who, if I go into this, it's with a different shaft, trying to maximize distance and still grab the benefits that come with forgiveness. So a couple things that stand out here. Ball speed, about a mile an hour difference. I think that's attributable to the difference in the static lofts. Launch angle 17.5 with 5,300 RPM. It's not on this screen, but the descent angle was 46 degrees, peak height 33 yards. That's playable for me. Certainly playable. It's actually pretty damn good. Now my concern here is, again, that's with a shaft that is meant to get up in the air and spin. If you put this same shaft in the hands of the guy that you think of as the typical super game improvement golfer, I'm not convinced he's going to get the ideal numbers. Maybe a situation where, hey, you've really got to work with a fitter to get that sorted out, or you have to accept that you're going to have to land on the front of the green and roll to the middle, land in the middle and roll to the back, or play past the pin on front pins. The stopping power just may not be there with the launch spin and descent numbers here, but otherwise pretty good for sure. Carry yards, 7-8 yards between carry and total over my gamer. Impressive. Now, I will say that my gamer spins way too much. I don't know what the loft difference is. I didn't check it, probably should have before we started this, but based on the spin numbers alone, I'm gonna guess it's probably solidly around 2 degrees. And so looking at these numbers, I'm thinking, I need to check the specs on mine and potentially bend them a degree or two stronger. So kind of eye-opening for me to see that much spin, but the upside is that can be addressed and I can potentially get better performance for it. Now finally, before we move on to the hybrid, I want to point out these dispersion ellipses here. I would expect the Big Bertha to be bigger in this case, simply because, again, this is a shaft I fought with a little bit, so I had a little trouble kind of really hitting it consistently. So this isn't good or bad in my opinion, it's just, hey, this shaft didn't fit me well, but the reason I'm calling attention to it is I want you to look at this every time. If you're in a Dick's, a Golf Galaxy, anywhere else where you're kind of looking at a launch monitor and either not working with a fitter or working with a fitter who may not exactly know what he's doing, this is really important. I mean, this is in my mind, that is the most critically important piece of information on this screen, right? You want to get that circle as tight as possible because that's a measurement of consistency. That tells you that every time I swing the club, I'm going to get a similar result. So in my mind, my opinion, whether it's an iron, even a wedge, a driver, it's worth giving up 3, 4, even 5 yards with a driver. Give up 5 yards if you can get that dispersion, circle, ellipse, whatever you want to call it, tighter, because that's going to make a much bigger difference in your game. So having said that, let's move on to the hybrid real quick. I didn't really do an apples to apples comparison here. I don't have a 5 hybrid lying around. It's something I'm going to start experimenting with. Full disclosure, I'm a lousy 5 iron player. I would much rather hit a 4 hybrid than a 5 iron, and so that tells me maybe I need to look at a replacement for my 5 iron, right? And it's kind of the way I think everybody should think, right? If there's a weakness in your bag, don't let pride get in the way of solving the problem, right? Hey, if I can fix my 5 iron problem with a 5 hybrid, all right, let's do it. So something I'm going to be looking at. As far as this goes, bigger footprint than I would normally play, and you definitely see the loft on this, but my God, it goes straight. And when if you look at that last shot, I hit 136 mile an hour ball speed with a essentially what it would be a 5 iron replacement. That's nuts. I love it, right? 205 yard carry, 218 total. Be some gapping issues I'd have to address, but that's part of the fun too. Like I said, it's fun to hit, easy to hit. I think it'd be easy to hit in the 3, 4, whatever your loft may be that you're using to fill that space. The other thing, like I said, all the way up to an 8 hybrid, which is really, really cool because, again, those issues that I saw with the irons where I'm not quite convinced it gets the ball high enough for the slower swing speed player, the hybrid is going to launch it higher and is going to help mitigate that. So something to consider. Again, it's a pride thing for a lot of guys, I know, right? You want to have irons because pros play irons and not hybrids, but if you can solve a problem with a club switch, do it. It just makes sense. All right, so that's pretty much it on the Bertha stuff. All in all, pretty solid offering. Can't say that I have any major issues with it above the PVD. Performance, yeah, some concerns about the iron spin, but again, work with a fitter, get that sorted out. Irons, $1,200 per set. That's an 8 iron set. Hybrids, $270. Launch date, we'll put it down below because I don't have it in front of me. Questions, comments, anything you want to know, leave us a comment. I will do my best to get back to you. Talk soon.